Welcome to this talk, and I'm pleased to welcome Dr. David Speicher, who's a well-known virologist and no stranger to the channel. David, thank you for coming back.
Thank you.
And Mr. Dean Rainey, who's a filmmaker. And I've watched your film this afternoon, actually, Dean, and I must say it's much more professional than mine. It's a very, very thorough piece of work, well produced and very well researched, I must say. But before we come on to that, Dean, we've just been talking with Michael Oshie in the hospital. For viewers that haven't seen that, just give us a brief sort of review of what we talked about there.
So that's basically, you sort of learned Michael's story, which the film is based on. And Michael is a gentleman that lives in the same small town here in rural Canada that I do. And he's a musician, filmmaker, and I'm a filmmaker. And so when he moved from Toronto, the big city, down to my town, well, of course, we got introduced to each other because we're in the same field. And so we became acquaintances. And when the pandemic happened, we were watching social media, and I could see Michael's posts. He was quite vocal because he's funny. He's a funny guy. He's a social guy. And, he was commentating through the whole thing. But then at one point after the vaccine rollout, sort of into 2022, 23, I noticed his posts were, he was talking a lot about being not well. His health was really getting worse and worse and worse. And I kind of suspected that it might have something to do with the vaccines, but I didn't know and I didn't want to ask. But I knew he was very careful not to make the connection publicly at that time. And then one day he reached out and he said, look, I've been down the rabbit hole on this thing. I don't know what I have, but I think this is like a canary in the coal mine of how this kind of happened. And I'm trying to figure it out. I'm going on this medical journey. Do you want to come and interview me and see if there's any story here, a documentary? And I said, okay, wow, this is pretty heavy. I don't know. I don't really make health, science, or political films or videos. I make cooking shows. I make talent search shows. I make documentaries about historical buildings. I make comedy shows. But I definitely was interested in telling a story like this. I just wasn't sure. I suspected it was going to be very difficult, and it turned out to be very difficult.
Yeah, and a difficult interview, really. I mean, we'll put a link to it and encourage people to watch that. But basically, Michael suffered a lot and is not getting any better, to put it mildly, at the moment. And I think Michael was a bit like me. He was taken in by the official narrative.
Yeah.
Because we basically believed what people in government said, what the leading doctors and nurses and medical officers and scientific officers were saying, and it was quite a big trauma to realise that they were wrong.
Oh yeah, and I think that's kind of what we're dealing with now. Like the difficulty making the film. You've got doctors and scientists who are very hesitant. Some were brave, but I had to find them. And I wasn't sure how to connect with them. But luckily, Michael was really, trying to connect me with doctors and scientists that would, and it took a lot of convincing, some of them. But then I was lucky to meet people like Dr. Stephen Pellich at the University of British Columbia. And in our film, he does a fantastic job of explaining the science of how the vaccines are work and how they could be doing the damage that they're doing. Then I meet David here, and he has got the whole story of the DNA contamination, the SV40 in there, and that takes the story in another direction. So it was for people like him, Dr. Chris Shoemaker, another doctor that lost his license for just being critical.
Yeah.
Not being anti-vax, just questioning, looking for informed consent. And so really, once we got those guys involved, those people, the Jasmine Daya, the personal injury lawyer who had like 30 cases that she was helping try to navigate the vaccine injury support program, when those people stepped up, then I had a story. Yeah. And it was really on the backs of them that I could do the research and get the right information out there. And what I tried to do was not convince anybody of anything, but just show them what I found.
That's the impression I got watching the film. I felt, the story is told through Michael's experience. He had a fourth vaccine, and then within 24, 36 hours, he noticed his feet were heavy. The paralysis worked his body. Now can't work his hands. He's even having difficulty breathing now.
Yeah.
He's had an MRI. The lesions are demonstrated in his spinal cord, and it's really a heart-wrenching, appalling story. But you've interwoven that with expert opinion, with underpinning science, with very good animation, I must say. But was it difficult to bring all this together? I mean, for a non-scientist, it's quite an impressive piece of journalism, really. How did you put that together?
Again, with the help of these gentlemen here, because I kept writing, here's my script, here's my voiceover, David, read it. Does it make sense? Because these are huge concepts.
Yeah, and it's been hard as well because of how I talk. I'm like, I know science, I know things inside and out. As soon as that camera is on and the heart's going, it's like, and so it's a good mix between in-depth, good factual science and showing Michael's.
Yeah, it really is. It integrates that really well. And the other thing that was so depressing about it is the hand washing.
Oh,
the pure abdication of responsibility.
Yes.
From the medical establishment, from the government, from the official vaccine compensation scheme, which is seen nothing from. Have you picked the worst case possible here, Dean, or is this typical of the experience of vaccine injured people in Canada?
Well, maybe David could speak to that, but
I've talked to lots of vaccine injured here. None of them are getting help of this at all, and that our federal government has shoved in millions, and most of that is gone in admin fees. There's one case of a 18-year-old kid who was vaxxed and then developed leukemia post-vax, applied for VISP, and got a response that his case has been denied as there is zero evidence that these vaccines can affect our own cells, our own genomes.
Well, apart from the evidence you've personally supplied,
exactly,
with the DNA contamination and the SV40 contamination, and
it's being blacklit, gaslit, like censored, and as it's called, they simply don't want to talk about this.
Which was, for me, like, it was important to weave in the government messaging that we were hearing at the time through the movie. Just to remind people, remember what our politicians were saying to us.
Yeah.
We have a prime minister that was extremely divisive. And they were giving medical advice. They're not doctors, but our politicians were out there at a public grand scale giving medical advice. And so we weave that through the film as well, just to remind everybody, here's what you were hearing.
And there were, those clips you showed of Trudeau. He was so confident, so certain, which now, in retrospect, we would view as hubris and arrogance.
Yeah.
Complacency of the most extreme form. And has he issued any formal apologies yet?
No.
There's nothing.
Nothing.
There's no dialogue. There's no debrief. We just had an election in April, and I can't believe that something that our society, the world, the globe went through that you only go through once in 100 years or whatever, and we didn't have a debrief on it. We didn't find out, what did we get right, what did we get wrong. It was not an election issue. In fact, both parties said, we don't want to talk about this during the election. So that was a huge shocker for me, a big disappointment in my government.
Yeah, and I mean, I must say that Michael's position is very similar to other vaccine injured people I've talked to around the world. I mean, Canada is particularly bad, I think. Maybe Australia's particularly bad, arguably. But the United States and the United Kingdom, New Zealand, as far as I can tell, equally... we have this saying, to turning a blind eye. These people have become inconvenient. You know, they did what they were told. They did what they were asked to do. They complied with the system. They've become injured, and don't want to know anymore. It's just appalling.
I think that, as a country, as in many countries, but generally, there's a lot of people going through trauma from that experience. And if you're vaccinated, you probably don't want to think about this issue, because then you have to reflect on your own health and what ifs. And, the film is to bring hope and is to expose and talk. We're not trying to scare people, but I think talking about it is really, really important. But a lot of people just are so hesitant. And then, of course, if you were calling the shots at the time, you don't want to revisit this, because then you have a lot to be accountable for. Yeah. So I hope that it's just time that needs to pass before we get sort of a look back at this, or maybe, some next generation reporter will dig into this, like it's residential schools or the JFK assassination or something that we couldn't, that's my only hope, and that our film then can be revisited. I just don't know, because right now it's really tough. Even family members say, we just want to move on.
Well, I've been told thoughts. It's basically over. It's behind us. Let's just move on.
Yeah.
If you are vaccine injured, or a child that has been killed by a vaccine, or a parent or an aunt or something, it's not over.
Correct. And as well as that, there needs to be some. I mean, the dead can't speak for themselves.
They can't.
They are entitled to having a voice. There needs to be some kind of accountability. You get these elites going around making these arrogant decisions, and people suffer, and then they just walk away and say, "Okay, what's the next job?"
Yeah.
It's just not an acceptable situation. And I think that the film, Dean, focused largely on, pretty well exclusively on the vaccine injury, but you could have talked about the harms of the lockdowns. You could have talked about the psychological, physical effects of that. You could have talked about the massive wealth redistribution from poorer people to richer, poorer people. You could have talked about the suppression of effective treatments that were just labelled simply as misinformation and medical disinformation. And you yourself got a YouTube strike, I believe.
Yeah, really early on. And at first I was disheartened, but then it actually kind of invigorated my team here, my production team.
Yeah.
Because, when you're living in a small town and you're a millennial or whatever, and you're a TikToker and all this, and you hear censorship, but you think, oh, it's not going to reach me. We're not doing anything controversial. But when we just uploaded some raw footage of Michael's first interview, just to send unlisted, not public, boom, pulled down, medical misinformation, and I got a strike. And then my team was like, okay, you're onto something. There's something there if they're coming after us here in this small town. So that was actually kind of a good thing to sort of bring the rest of my team, because honestly, we're all not on the same page. We're all different people, and everybody's got to experience something, I think, firsthand to get that buy-in, I think.
I got a strike once. I was disbarred for about a week.
Right.
The first video I actually had taken down was by Pierre Corey, that you probably know of.
Yep.
He did a report to was it Congress or Senate, I think,
Right.
On first one was on steroids that they were accepted. The next one was on ivermectin. The video had about 10 million views in a few days. His and mine video was on about a third of a million views within a few days, and it was just taken down. And this is a treatment we now know to be effective.
Yeah.
And yet that wasn't allowed. Having said that, I think YouTube is much more reasonable now. I've had nothing I don't push the envelope too much, but I've had nothing taken down for a while.
Because they've already helped get done what needed to get done.
That's right.
It's done. Because I'll tell you, with the vaccines, anything critical to vaccines pulled down. On an unrelated note, when Russia invaded Ukraine, anything that was Russian news pulled down. And then there was another thing recently too. Well, of course, Gaza and Israel, depending on the side. And this is not taking sides, but things get pulled down when they need to be.
Yeah.
So it's not fixed. It's just that they don't need to hold it back anymore because I think they already got what they needed to do.
Yeah, the vaccine rollouts have already occurred. I never thought of it in those terms, actually. That's an interesting way to look at it. A somewhat depressing way to look at it, but an interesting way.
Yeah.
So who are you showing this film to at the moment, Dean?
So right now we are trying to do as many in-person screenings as we can in any communities, but we find it very difficult because, honestly, theaters are refusing to screen the film because they're saying that they don't agree with the content. So that's a bit of a wackiness to me because, having grown up in the arts and documentaries, documentaries have a very storied history of speaking about taboo or controversial subjects. So why is this one off limits? And then even, some churches, community centers, they are just sort of taking a stand. They are scared of the backlash.
Shit there about Michael's church.
Well, Michael's own church, of which he was a member of the congregation. Crazy. Well, he was in the congregation maybe 5 years ago in Toronto. And I had reached out because I said, there's a gentleman who used to go to your church. He's in the beaches in Toronto. We'd like to screen this film. Here's the film. Watch it. It's not anti-vax. It's not anti-science. I think you'll find that it's well-balanced. And they wrote back and said, sorry, we don't want to screen it. It doesn't align with our mission and values. And I just really was like, I said, can you explain that in detail? Because I'm pretty sure God loves vaccine-injured people too.
Yeah.
So I'm just not sure. And of course, it upset Michael because Michael's like, well, that's the church I used to go to. And now they're not acknowledging me. Yeah. And so it's very hard. But we're trying to do public screenings because it's so important for people to see it with community. And we have the doctors like Dr. David here answering questions. And sometimes we get not a lot of questions, but we get sharing and statements because for 4 years, people haven't been able to say anything. So the dam is now open. They enter a room where they now feel free to talk about what they experienced or what the people they know and love experienced as well. So,
I mean, the science in the film was really quite clear and unambiguous. There's nothing to, it doesn't. Well, I suppose I kind of peer reviewed it really, but it doesn't need peer review because it was kind of basic science. It was, it's like you got 2 kidneys and a pair of lungs. It's kind of hard stuff to argue with. Antigens cause the body to produce antibodies. It's that kind of level of science. I mean, is there a kind of anti-science vibe in Canada generally at the moment, or is it just for the vaccines?
It's very anti. If you speak against the vaccines at all, you're silenced. So if your facts are there, it's like, well, is this peer reviewed science? And if it isn't, if it's just a Substack or preprint, it's quickly dismissed. On that point, our work on the DNA and the SVV 40 has since gone through peer review. Our answers have been sent back, and I'm just waiting to hear a final outcome. So,
yeah, you can get a bit of ping pong in peer review. Can't you?
Oh yeah.
Where they say, yeah, I mean, I know when I got papers peer reviewed, it was really frustrating. You know, some of the things that they pointed out were just silly, but you've got to respond to it. And
it is.
You got to humour them basically.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. Right. So, is there big money in this Dean filmmaking?
No.
Oh, really?
There is not, especially a movie like this. We spent a year and a half making it. We have to film constantly with Michael following him. He's got his camera filming. It was about 500-600 hours of editing to go through all the reviews, try to make sense, try to condense it, try to present it in a way that the average viewer is going to understand it.
It does. You follow the story through. It really works.
Yeah. Thank you. So I guess it's a labor of love. So what we've done is we put it up on YouTube through our website raineymedia.com, because we just figure as many people that can see this need to see this. I understand, like, a lot of axe-injured people aren't working. They're on fixed income now.
Yeah.
So I don't want to ask. I want this to be sort of a story for them so that they can relate to and share, and maybe a conversation starter with other people about that. But we do ask that, if there's other people that want to watch it and share, we could really appreciate a donation that you can send to just help support the film. It costs about $40,000 to make. And so we're trying to sort of claw that back so that maybe we can make a follow-up or other content and stuff like that. So,
I mean, that's actually not much for a film of that quality. I mean, but there again, I suppose you weren't paying yourself.
No, yeah.
So, if you're getting free labour, that makes it a bit cheaper, doesn't it?
Yeah. But I had to pay my team, and I had to pay them for their work on this. And then, as we go and try to do speeches and have the doctors come for Q&A, we try to give an honorarium to them, because everybody is struggling connected to this. And so we're just trying to help each other out, and so far audience have been generous at the live events and that. So that's positive.
On that point, there's been some online who have ripped the file, and so if you like this, want to help us, don't rip things, but how?
Just share our link. It's up on YouTube, or share our website and share it to all your social media. But we had a few people ripping it from our YouTube and then uploading it to their own platform. And then when I said, hey, you don't own this film, this is my film, like, please help me. They just said, I'm sorry, your film's too important. I've got a bigger platform than you do, so I'm going to put it out there. And what they don't understand is that I'm also still trying to get distribution for this and get it into film festivals. Because I don't want to just show this to other people who believe that vaccines cause injury. I'm trying to get to the other side of the aisle. And I think if I can get on a major network, or I can get into film festivals, that will give us some legitimacy and open the door as just a good film about a difficult topic.
And it's just as easy to click on your YouTube link as someone else's YouTube link. So I don't think that's really an argument. To me, the accountability, the learning from history is all immensely important. But I am really quite concerned about the massive expansion in mRNA technology. So in my country, Harwell Science Park in Oxford, they reckon they're going to produce another 250 million mRNA vaccines a year. There's one in Australia, in Melbourne, I think it is. They're going to knock out another 100 million doses a year. Is Canada kind of going down that route as well?
Well, not only the mRNA vaccines, also self-amplifying mRNA vaccine, and two, where it's being used here is in a rabies vaccine for dogs. So it's a self-amplifying vaccine. It's a lower dose, except that there's no off switch. So we don't know the long-term effects of these. The first human one was rolled out last September in Japan, and had a 89.6% adverse event. So, if it's that bad, why are we even considering using these?
It can only work. Even taking the ordinary mRNA vaccines, I mean, okay, we talk a lot about the spike protein.
Yep.
But it doesn't matter really, because any mRNA, especially if it's got the pseudo-uridine in it to make it hang around for who knows years, ages, it's going to produce. We know from the lipid nanoparticles it's going to go everywhere.
Yep.
It's going to go into cells everywhere. Those cells everywhere are going to produce the antigen that's going to go onto the surface of those cells. Some will be released humourally, but others will be adhered to the cell surface. And the immune system's going to beat up on it regardless of what the antigen is. So whether it's a measles or a mumps or a rabies or a, I don't know, an influenza, doesn't matter. That's still a foreign protein that will be on the surface of the cells that our immune system is going to attack. The way this technology is working now, it's fundamentally flawed, and I would say fundamentally dangerous, and yet we're carrying on with it. And to me, the only way that can work is if the information is controlled.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That the side effects are controlled and the information is censored. And I suppose you could argue that control of information, that lack of free speech, is even more alarming.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because that's what's happening in the UK now. I mean, what's it like in Canada in terms of, do people self-censor or?
Absolutely.
Well, yes, they are, because the doctors are self-censoring, aren't they?
My own.
Sure.
I went to see my own doctor, and I was okay. Now I'm going to tell him that I made a film about this, and my doctor traditionally is pretty good. He's very, slow to give us antibiotics or medicine. Really, he's like, see me as few times a year or whatever. Like, stay healthy, stay away from me. But with this, I showed him the film, and I said, please come to a screening, and he said, yeah, I've been starting to hear some things about this. And that shocked me, because I was like, you're not at the front line of hearing everything and connecting. He was just in passing. Right. That he was just like, I'm starting to hear some things about this. And I was floored by that. So it's a black hole of information here, because just nobody's asking for it. And if nobody's asking for it, they're not going to share it.
And it's controlled, the peer-reviewed literature is compromised in ways that it's never been in my lifetime before. Yeah. Or certainly not that I've been aware of. I mean, it is a new phenomenon. It's not that I've just become aware of it. That there is more control of the fundamental core narratives of science itself. So, to me, this is symptomatic of a much bigger, more ominous picture that is so concerning.
It is. Yeah.
Good. So, as to the future, want more people to watch the film. Hopefully, more to come. I think. Speaking as I'm basically an educationalist. I mean, that's what I did for pretty well 30 years, and I must say the way that you tell the story is really good teaching technique. It's quite. For a non-professional educationalist, it comes across really well. Can you send us all the links you'd like to go underneath this and underneath the video and?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Put that on. Yeah.
I'll send you the trailer, and we have a
Yep.
theme song that was written by Greg Bolden in the U.S. He was inspired to write a theme song for us, and so
Yep.
that's been great.
It's been good.
Great. And gentlemen, for what you're doing on behalf of the, I think on behalf of the world's population, most of them might not realise, but you know, for what you're doing, thank you. And it's great that people from such different backgrounds. We've got David as a virologist and Dean as a filmmaker, and you've synergised. So
Yes.
brilliant. Well done. Keep it up, and this will help.
Well, thank
Help
you.
a lot of people now, but hopefully prevent a lot of pain, suffering, and death in the future as well.
Yeah, and thank you for being brave enough
Yeah,
early,
Thank you.
and not giving up, and creating a platform for us when we are ready and when we have something to come and share it. I mean, I was checking your Wikipedia. You are still
persona non grata on Wikipedia.
medical misinformation. Every podcast I've been on, it's like it's going to take a while, but we're going to push that. We're
Yeah.
gonna,
Information. Yeah.
If I had a good report on Wikipedia, I would be really quite concerned. But it just shows this wider control narrative.
It is. It's crazy.
Mainstream, I mean, you know, mainstream media. Okay, yeah, you know, we don't really expect objectivity from a lot of members of the mainstream media. You know, that's been compromised for years. But things like Wikipedia, you'd expect it to be a new media. But yeah, and it's not just. I'm not just griping about my Wikipedia. You know, go and read it. You know, you'll find it amusing, no doubt. But you know, it's all the really high caliber scientists and doctors around the world who've been really denigrated on that, and it just makes it so hard to find reliable information.
Yeah.
yeah. And they start off
It is.
saying that you were fantastic with your early information, but then somehow you went off the rails. And
Yeah, I dared to follow the evidence. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah.
great. Right, links are there. Do watch the film, whatever you do. You won't be disappointed. About 20 minutes of it, I'd say, is more Canada specific, but most of it, the other hour or so, is applicable to anyone, anywhere. Watch it and comment, and if you can, support in any way that you can, but certainly at least share it. Let's get this out to 1 billion people.
Can I just close with one quick story about
Please
David
do.
having
Please
some-
do.
Yeah, there's
Yeah,
just a little
go for
behind
it,
the
Dave.
scenes.
Please
So,
do.
The movie's called Why Can't We Talk About This? And for months, I struggled to find any doctor or scientist that would talk to me. And one day I went to visit Michael, and Michael was really excited because he's like, I met the scientist who discovered the contamination in the batches that maybe I was a part of, and that with the DNA and the SV40. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is huge. Michael says, but he has a stutter. He's going to have a difficult time talking. And I said, what? Are you kidding me? The one doctor that will talk to me is going to give a challenge? But I watched a presentation of David's, and I was like, this information is gold. He will be in my movie. And so David worked really hard, and his segment is really great. And I just want to commend him for, you know, just stepping up to the plate and delivering on that really difficult information and knowing his stuff.
That's absolutely fine, because I don't actually allow perfect people on this channel.
Thanks, John.
Great. Let's talk soon, guys. But thank you so much.
Awesome.
Thank you.
All right.